Okay, so one of the things I need to do now is take the original piston rings off that I bought. So the number one and number two rings, I think are fine. They will actually compress down and fit within the cylinder. But the third one, let me just pull this one off. These ones I don't really want to break, but I don't need them. I've got replacements now. Oops. So let me just take these off and I can show you what I mean. It takes a little bit of finagling to get them to come out of the groove. And if I should be able to just pull those apart, there we go, and pop that out. That one's coming out nicely. There we go, go on, there's one. Okay, so there's one, that's all okay. So remember, these are the new rings that I got at last visit, but unfortunately I had to get another set of piston rings because even though the engine that I've got is a stock engine, I found out that they actually do two types of piston, two types of oil way. So there is a, I'm stuck in there quite nicely, there we go. There is a shallow groove and a deep groove to these ones. So let me just pull these ones off. These ones are quite thin, so relatively easy to come out. You just got to get your finger in there to pull it. There we go. So these ones are really pliable because they're quite thin metal. Let me see if I can get the main ring, just find the end. There we go, there's the other one. So let's just pull that thin one out. And then the one that's the curly one should have an end somewhere. Should be able to find it. And that will allow me to just pull that apart. He's there somewhere. Where are you? There we go. I just pull that one off. So what's interesting is these rings are actually deep or shallow depending on the type of piston you've got. So these ones are actually deep, these ones are deep piston ring sets, but this is a shallow groove on the piston itself. So what I've got is a different set of piston rings. I'm just going to move these out of the way because I really don't want to get them mixed up. Let's grab our new set, and these ones are the number 3. So this is the one that goes around the oil. And you can see these are actually a little bit more fragile. Let me grab one of the old ones. So that's the new one, and that's the old one. So you can see there, it's like half the size. So I didn't realize before, but on these pistons, you have deep grooves and shallow grooves. So what I did was try to put deep groove piston rings onto a shallow groove piston, which was not going to work. So let's go through that process again. We have the different piston rings. So let's put in, there's our join, there we go. We'll just pop that in there. These things go on super easily. It's the top number 1 and number 2 that are the ones you have to go super careful with, because they're the ones that are prone to snapping. So get another one, they're very fragile, these. Just get that to go into the groove nicely. Yeah, need to work that one around. There we go, that's in. So might need to actually trim this one. No, is he in there? No, he's not in there. Let's go again. Yeah, there we go, that's in. Okay, so let's do the same with this top one as well. And so those, so again, working exactly the same way as they did previously, but these will now compress in, which they wouldn't before, because this was just a little bit too wide. So even with the piston ring compressor, it just wouldn't compress. It wouldn't do the job at all. So that's our number 3 piston rings. Let's open up our number 2. So these are all numbered 2 second, number 1 top. So again, you can see these are pretty heavy duty piston rings there. These actually have a bevel to them as well. So the bevel always goes down. So it's always worth just checking that to make sure we've got the right way round. I'm going to get one side in and then just try and pry it open with my fingers there. And that should slip over the piston relatively easily. There we go. And that's popped into the top one. So let's move that out and put it into the bottom one. And slide that down. There we go. That's in. And then we'll just do a quick check. Yeah, even by hand I can compress that down. So I'm pleased with that. So that's number 2. And the top one. Number 1 piston ring. Just move all those out of the way. And same thing again. Let's look and see if we've got a groove on these. And the top one doesn't have a groove. So I'm just going to offset where I'm putting it in. I'm just going to take it around the other side actually. I will spin these around before I put them onto the engine, and the reason being we don't want these gaps to line up, because otherwise there could be the potential for oil to get past, or for the compression to escape out of the cylinder. Oh, I scraped it a little bit. So there we go. Okay, so that one is now in. Now before I do all the others, what I'm going to do is take this over to the engine. I'm going to put the piston ring compressor on there. We're going to crush these down, and I'm going to just see if that will slide neatly into the piston without us having to do anything else. It should do, because these ones I believe are the right ones for this type of piston. Okay then, so let's get this piston installed. So I'm going to take the pressure off the piston ring compressor, and I'm going to pop that over our piston ring. Just going to make sure that we've got these gaps nicely aligned so they're not aligned. I've got one opposite, 180, 180. I'm going to move those around because I've got a gap there. There we go. So they're all out of alignment with each other, which is good. I'm going to pop the spring compressor on there, tighten that up. And all this is going to do is just crush those rings into those grooves. And yeah, that's working. So give that a good tighten. Don't need to go too tight. Now, a little dimple on the front of the piston there. That tells me it's the front of the engine. So before I put this in, what I'm going to do is take our new bearings. So these are the shell bearings to go on the con rods. And I've got 2 in a pack here. So 1 for each side. And you'll notice these have also got a bit of a groove on there. What I'm going to do is slide that in and just let it clip into place. There we go. You can feel it clicking quite nicely. Make sure it's nice and comfortable. And then before I put that in, I'm going to give that a good oil as well, because once this is put together, I'm going to need to turn the crank. There we go. I don't want to go too mad with it, but I need to turn the crank in order to line up the crankshaft with the next piston and things, so that we can get them all in one by one. So there is going to be a bit of manual turning for this. So I've got that one ready. What I'm going to do is just double check, make sure we've got the dimple to the front, pop that in gently and get that into the piston bore. There we go. Now the trick is to get this so it's nice and neat and comfortable against here, so there's no gaps or anything. And I take my hammer and I'm just going to use the wooden end, keep some pressure on this and give it a good tap, and that should push it into the bore. And there we go. So our piston is now in. Those rings were compressed. I can lift up on the other end. Let's just bring you over there so you can see what I'm doing. So what I'm doing here is just going to turn our crankshaft so that I can get that aligned onto it, and just move them around nice and gentle. There we go, just until it sits in there comfortably. Okay, now I can take the other side of our bearing race, and I'm going to put the other bearing on, and same as before, I'm going to pop it into the bearing housing like we did last time, put it into the groove and just clip that into place. That's good. I'm going to give this surface a really good light oil. So same as I did before, a little bit of engine oil on my hand, and we'll just give that a good, there we go. So I've got the flat side that's going to go against the dimple on the other side, and the dimple against this side. And all I'm going to do is just pop that on, snug that down just a little way, just so that we can keep that together. Give that a gentle tap. There we go. Okay, so next I'm going to do up these bolts and just pinch them together tight. I don't want them to be too tight at this stage. I do want to be able to move the crank around, so we'll keep that nice and light for the time being. There we go. And we'll just look for the shiny side on the nut, and that's the side that goes downwards onto the cap. So I'm just going to put those on, move those down, make sure they're snugged up. I don't want them to be too tight, but I do want them to be tight enough that nothing moves about. So I'm going to grab a socket and just cinch those in a little bit tighter. See if that's the right size. That's good. Okay, I'm just going to tighten those down. I don't want to go too tight on one side and not on the other. There we go, that's starting to bite. The same on that one. Yeah, might need to just do that by hand first. There we go, just turn those in. Get it to bite a little way. And all of these will be torqued up to a particular torque wrench setting. Same as we did with the main cap bolt. And she should be able to turn. Now, the tricky thing is that because we've got the piston rings in there, it's going to start to create friction. The more we put in, the harder it's going to be to turn these. So I just want to get these lightly in there just while we put this together, and then we can start torquing these up a little bit better. So what I'm looking for at the moment is to close these shells up, just to make sure that it's gripping nicely onto the crankshaft there, but I don't want to go too mad. There we go. Yeah, not the easiest thing to do. Let's get an extension bar in there, I think. Okay, pop an extension on there. That's better. Gives us a bit more ability to get in there. So yeah, like I said before, I don't want to over tighten these. So I'm just snugging them down for now. Make sure that's sitting comfortably on our crankshaft. Right, okay. That one's in. Now I'm going to do the same process for the rest of these pistons, and we'll get them all the caps put on, and then what we'll do is we'll gradually move it around and we'll torque these down to the right torque wrench settings. There we go. So you can see all of those 4 pistons are in. You see the dots all facing towards the front. So they're in nicely. There's a bit of oil in each of those. In fact, that's a little bit dry now. inside here where the piston rings have scraped the oil down. So that's working really, really well. What I'm going to do is put a bit more oil in as I continue to rotate the engine, just because I need to move it slightly so that I can line up the con rods on the other side. So what I'm going to do is just turn it over a little bit, and we'll do the same process but for the other side. Well, that was by far one of the most difficult engine reassemblies I've ever done, mainly because it was difficult to get to everything. So what I'm doing now, I'm just going to go through, I've just done the first two, and what I'm going to do is, I've done these two, I'm just going to work my way through. These are being tightened up to 50 foot-pounds, so it's not terribly tight, but the socket's a bit tight on there. But it's the right torque setting so that we don't get any slack in there, and it doesn't make a hell of a clattering noise as we motor along. I might have to find myself a different socket actually. This one's not particularly good. Let's try the next set. Yeah, some of these are okay. That one's good. What I'll do is rotate the engine. There we go. So that I can access all of them, because some of them are accessible and some of them aren't. So the ones that aren't accessible, I can't do much with. So let's just turn that engine over. What I'll do is just put a socket onto the crank bolt. So I've done these two. I've done those, but I can't reach. So this one's not a particularly good one. So let's just move it up so I can move this up a little bit, and then we can have a go at the others. Come on. Yeah, not the easiest thing to turn without any oil in there. There we go. Okay. Keep it going a little bit. Don't want to go too nuts. Really don't want to rotate it too many times, just because it's pretty dry in there. A little bit more, just so we can access all those bolts. There we go. That's good. Right, so take our torque bar off. So this one I couldn't get on before. There we go, he's on. Okay, that's on at 50. That's on at 50. Let's get to these ones. That's on at 50. And that one. Okay, so they're done, they're done. That one's done. Okay, so I've got this one to go. Or if I can make sure this one's okay. That one's good. Come on, this socket is tight. Okay, right, I'm going to rotate it again because I've got these two to access. Actually, I can probably do that one. Let's do that one from here. That's good. And this one. Okay. So it's just, this one needs to come up just a tiny bit more so I can get to that other bolt. That's good enough. I can reach it from there. That's good. That's good. Okay, I'm happy with that. They're all done. They're all tight. Why is it not? There we go. Just check where. Yeah, we're still on the money. So these are set to 45 to 50. So I've got this set to 50 at the moment. So just cinching these up a little bit more. Just got to make sure they're on exactly the right torque settings. We don't want these to slack about. Come on, off you come. The pistons and the conrod. That has been a really hard job. Accessing it, tipped on its side like this. I dropped shell bearings into the top of the pistons. Had to get those out. It's been a real struggle. It's taken about 2.5 hours to do this. Normally it would take about half an hour. So really hard job. So the next stage, I'm going to flip it on its head, and then we're going to put the oil pump and the pan back on, and we'll put the sump on and get her ready so that we can flip it over and lower it back in. So let's get it turned over, ready to work on the sump. Okay, and the amount of times I've dropped tools into the bilge is unreal. Right. There we go. She's upside down. Whew. That's one heavy, heavy engine. Okay. So, give this a bit of a clean up as well. Get rid of some of this gunk. We've got an oil seal to put in at the back there, so we'll get that on as well. And what I'll do is take a bit of a blade on here and give this a good clean. Make sure she's ready for putting on the gaskets and things. So first thing, let's get the oil pump. Let's get that positioned, and then we can do the seals and things afterwards. Okay, so we've got the oil pump here. I taped one of the bolts to it just to make sure I didn't lose it. I kept it all together. So let's get the oil pump in first. So that goes down like so, down through the oil way, and just get ourselves roughly positioned. And that needs to connect to the cam. So this bolt goes into the back. So I'm just going to take that off where I've taped it on. Get rid of the tape. And there we go, get all that out of the way. Right, so that goes down through there, like so. And we will get a socket to give that a good tighten down. So, okay, so that's in position. Now I have the oil tray that goes back on there. Now the question is, how? So how does that go back on there? So if we, there we go. Okay, so let's take our bolt back out again. Got a bit carried away there. Okay, so I had a couple of my bolts the wrong way around. I had the long stud here was at the back, and it meant that I couldn't actually tighten up the bolts. I did a quick check on some of the previous videos that we've done, and yeah, I've got a couple of the bolts in the wrong position. So it should have been these two bolts. So that big bolt should be there as well, and then that kind of fits around that way. So what I'm going to do is just remove a couple. We've got the 110 foot-pounds of torque on these things, so they're pretty tight. Just going to reverse this one back off a little bit. Oh, that's too big. Tell you what, what should we do? Let's pop that on there. Okay, and then we just need to extend that a little bit to give ourselves a bit more leverage on it. Let's grab a big wrench and just see if we can't just pop that back a little bit. There we go. they're pretty tight. So these long ones are a bit of a pain. They're 21 mil, which is kind of spark plug size for anyone that's interested. Let's just tighten that one down, and I'm just going to swap this inside one as well. Let's grab the little socket for that one. Put the right way around. Okay, we're going to have to do that with a breaker bar. Yeah, these are on at 110 foot-pounds. If you remember, we did these in a previous video. And yeah, they take a lot of pressure. So we'll just back that one back out. There we go. And we're going to swap that over. So that makes more sense because that way the oil pump's not going to foul anything. And the metal tray actually fits in properly. I was trying to get the metal tray to fit at the back here, and I just couldn't get it to fit. And it's late in the evening. Must be nearly 10 o'clock at night now. I've been working all day and then come to work on the boat. And it takes a lot out of you when you're trying to do all these things. And it really has fought me all the way, this engine. Quite something, I tell you. All right, they're on tight. Now let's get some torque going on these things. There's our big bar, and we've got our torque wrench. So this is set to 110 again. And we're listening for that click. There we go. And same on this one. There we go. Okay, so these ones are good. So now we'll be able to get the oil pump back in. Now, with these, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm actually going to pull it around by hand. There we go. Just tighten these up. And then what I'm going to do, I've got another torque wrench, but it's not a very good one, so you can only feel it. Yeah, that's pretty good. You can feel it through your hand, but it doesn't click, which is a bit disappointing. So let's just check what we're set to there. That's set to 110. Pop that on and just double check those. Yep, that's 110. And there. Okay. Right, so they're in the right place now. So our tray fits where it's supposed to, so that's always a bonus. And we should be able to get our oil pump back in where it belongs. So let's have a look, shall we? So that goes down there. Get it lined up properly. Need two hands for this. There we go. And then there's two little lugs that it sits on. Oh, that's much better. That's in there nicely now. I'm pleased with that. And then that one, I guess it goes that way round. So those fit on okay. And I've got a hole there and I can put our other bolt through to get that tightened down. So much happier about that time round. Let's put that back through down there. Now we can tighten him up. Ooh, get that right around. Oh, that's much more satisfying seeing that going on properly. There we go. Much better. Okay, let's get some bolts tightening that down. And then once this is down, we can clean up the edge of the gasket seal for around the sump. We'll bring the sump in. In fact, before I do that, I'm going to put the rear oil seal in as well. Doesn't really matter if it's before or after, but might do it before. Okay, so grab some bolts, get that bolted down, and then get ready to put the sump on.